COVID-19. That's so weird. I'm Julie Cole.
And I'm JP Cole.
And in all seriousness, we're here to talk. We're doing a special edition podcast today to talk a little bit about COVID-19, the current pandemic we're under. And we just wanted to address it and come out and offer some content and some support as we're all walking through this as a community.
Yeah. There's a lot of information out there, some good, some bad. And a lot of it's fearful. Yeah. And I think what we're hoping to accomplish are some practical things so that we can stay grounded and stay positive and kind of work together through this really difficult time.
Yep, absolutely. As usual, we're going to start with our gratitude. Yeah. I think that gratitude is probably going to be such a crucial thing in the coming weeks and days. So we decided to start this off with our normal gratitude.
Yeah. And we chose healthcare workers and others who have exposure as part of their job. You know, we both come from families that have a lot of nurses and healthcare workers in them, first responders.
Yep.
And we know how important that is. And I do not envy their position right now.
Right. And military. For
our military. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, we both have, my dad was EMS, my mom nurse, your mom nurse, your stepdad was a state trooper. So, and then lots of other, folks. So we definitely understand the impact that this has on families. I mean, yeah, when you have to suit up and show up no matter what.
Yeah. And the fact that as the rest of us get frustrated with quarantine and having to be home, these people are out there having to deal with
up and showing up.
The rest of us that are getting sick and how important that is, how grateful we are that there are people who have devoted their lives to being able to help with that. I'm very grateful for that because...
Absolutely. And I think it's really worth stating that part of the reason why we're all choosing to, or why we're being asked to self-quarantine is to help our healthcare workers, right? Not only their exposure, but also the decisions that they have to make. About, this concept of flattening the curve is about not overburdening our healthcare system and leaving them having to make decisions that are having to be made in other areas of the world.
Yeah, that are really difficult. I wouldn't want to make those decisions, and I don't want to put these people in having to make those decisions either.
No, absolutely not. So, I think our first thought is we're not here to debate the science.
No.
Like, there's a lot of stuff going on out there. Social media and the media in general kind of tends to amplify. What we've seen a lot of is amplifying to extremes, right? On one end, we have kind of total minimization, and then on the other side...
total extremists. Yeah. And so what we found is that normally the truth lies somewhere in the middle with all things. And so one of the things that's helped us is choosing to follow specific healthcare sources like the CDC and the World Health Organization, as well as investigating what's actually going on in other countries. That's helpful rather than getting caught up in the social media and the media broadcasting, different points of view, total extremes. And I think there's a lot of practical stuff that we can take away from those sites, and we just encourage you to continue to look at those things and also to be mindful at how much you're consuming this stuff. I'll talk a little bit about my own experience with anxiety around this, but it's just really important to not get over consumption with this as well.
And it's hard because right now we're all being asked to self-quarantine. So a lot of people are spending a lot of time at home. In South Carolina here, I don't know, where people are listening from, but they made the decision to close all of our school districts for the next 2 weeks. And so now we're all trying to figure out what it looks like and scrambling to figure out childcare when, trying to figure out what our schedules are going to look like, trying to figure out, what self-quarantine looks like, that kind of stuff. Yep.
It's a lot of change.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It could be easily overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so when you're spending a lot of time at home, all of a sudden it's hard not to consume, not to be on social media outlets, not to be watching the news, not to be consuming a lot of this and find it to be consuming us, right?
You want to be informed, but also not intoxicated with consumption.
Right. Oh, that's an interesting term. Yeah, I like that. So what we wanted to talk about today is like kind of, focusing in is how do we care for our health amid this pandemic?
Yeah. What are some practical things that we can do?
Sure.
For our physical health, one of the first things that we talked about was building a schedule and maintaining a schedule. When the kids are out of school, I see all these joke things on social media about, oh, my new schedule is going to be, Netflix and then drinking in the evenings. And like, it's funny, right? But there's a lot of people that are going to fall prey to that. And regardless of whether this is 2 weeks or whatever, that is not a good approach to be able to take care of your physical and mental health.
Sure.
So maintaining a circadian rhythm by managing your sleep, building a schedule, trying to stick to it.
Mm-hmm. Thinking about what you consume, being intentional about what you consume. Yeah. There's a lot of jokes going around like the hurricane snack jokes, right?
Oh, yeah.
But the truth is that we're not talking about a couple of days when we have the potential to be self-quarantined for an infinite amount of time. I mean, I know, but I'm just saying, like, we don't know. We're looking at 2 weeks, but it could be a little bit longer. I mean, the CDC came out yesterday and said, it's reasonable to expect 8 weeks. And so not to get crazy about it, but to be intentional about what we're consuming. It would be really easy to consume, not just in terms of media, but nutritionally consume a lot of foods that would actually make
it worse.
Yeah. Increase a decline in our mental and emotional health. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's easy to lay around, eat, snack foods,
mm-hmm.
and which causes you to not want to move. And so then you're up later and you're watching more TV, and it's this whole cycle that we would really like to encourage you to avoid because it's unnecessary and doesn't have to happen.
And because we're not in our normal rhythm of things too, in terms of communication and connection with other people, mm-hmm. I think that, it'd be easy to fall prey to things like major depression, serious anxiety, things like that, without even, like, we're in a vacuum, so we're not going to see it as easily.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I always bring it back to there's a lot of things that we can't control.
Yeah.
I can't control my depression. I can't control this crisis. I can't control the market. I can't control any of those things. But what I can do is control the things that might influence my experience with those.
Right.
So I can wake up at the same time every day. I can maybe I can't get to a gym because that's no longer a safe place for me to be, but I can work out at the house.
Yep.
I can build a schedule by which I adhere to it and connect with my family and also work on work things. There's a lot of people who are going to be able to work from home, and there's a lot of people who may not be able to work from home that have jobs in which they can still be able to go and be present for that, and that's awesome. But thinking about our diet is not just what we consume with food, but with media, with the people that we surround ourselves with, mm-hmm. the conversations that we have. How can we make the best of this and also focus on having loving, caring conversations? I think we'll get to that in a minute, but talk to our family more, to mm-hmm. utilize some of these cool apps and interfaces that we now have so that we can better stay connected with people, even though we can't go see them in person.
Sure. One of the things that we're talking about a lot, and we're going to do a special, kind of piece on it right after this, is, telehealth capacity.
Yeah.
Probably more now than ever, it's going to be really important to access, telehealth, right?
Yeah.
And when I say that, I'm not even just talking about telehealth. Like, you can go online to do screenings for COVID-19, but a lot of our health providers in South Carolina are offering, they're offering telehealth sessions. So if you have something going on medically, you can get on. It's like $20 to do a telehealth session. And then if you need treatment, then they talk about, additional payment, insurance, like, that kind of stuff. But there's options for that. Most therapists are moving to telehealth platform, as what we are. And so, like, telehealth is the future, and this is going to force us to get comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really important to point out that there are a lot of therapists, a lot of psychiatrists, a lot of medical practitioners that are utilizing telehealth during this time. Yeah. You are not in a vacuum with your health, mental or physical, mm-hmm. right? And so you can access these things. It feels awkward because it's not what we're used to. But it's an option, and it's a viable option.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually probably, if we're going to be quarantined at home with our families and stuff like that, all joking aside, all kidding aside, like, it is going to be stressful. Mm-hmm. And what an opportunity to utilize a resource that can help you cope and connect with other people.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I can't help but think about life is happening for us, not to us. Not that this is a great thing, but how can we use it instead of getting caught up in the drama and crisis of it? How can we use it to our benefit and try to grow from it? And I can't tell you how many clients I've had in my office for years that have been like, I wish that my employer would let me work from home more because I think I could be more productive if, right?
Right.
And so, like, how is this an opportunity for us to, instead of getting caught up on Netflix at home, and how can we show that?
Yeah.
You know, what if we get through this process and what we have are employers that do have more flexibility around that, and we can be more productive and show that we create value in different forums for the companies that we work for.
Right.
So, I think that even I've experimented with it for years. We've had the video and audio ability to do therapy sessions. And so for people who are traveling, or for when people were sick or dealing with different things, or they couldn't particularly get in for one reason or another, we were still able to connect with them and provide good care. Ideally, I prefer to see people face to face. Of course, I think it's more intimate and there's more connection there. But having HD quality video with fast internet in which you can genuinely connect with another human being through the screen enables us to have access to people. It's not the most ideal, but it is available, and a lot of people are using it. And we've even had the experience too of like all the cool things with telehealth, as far as we're traveling and we don't have time to stop and wait for 2 hours at a doctor's.
Right.
And we're able to phone call it in, do a verbal assessment, and then say, all right, well, this is what's probably needed, and in the next town down, you can go to this CVS and pick it up. It can be much more efficient, and we won't get into that, but it can be much more efficient. Yeah, absolutely. And so it's not all doom and gloom with this. It's important to think about, okay, how can we leverage this and focus on how can we continue to grow emotionally, spiritually, physically through this time period.
A lot of the online platforms for physical health are offering free videos or free access for the next 2 or 3 weeks, right? So I know for sure Down Dog is doing it. They put an ad out, so it's a yoga app. It's one that you really like a lot and utilize.
Because you can set it to easy mode.
But and I know that there are others doing it, so there are going to be folks who are going to be trying to, there are going to be people who are going to offer free content during this time. There are a lot of churches already have online services. So if you're thinking about spiritual health, there are a lot of churches that have online series that are already saved back. So you can actually go on and do series. There's a podcast, like our church, Emmaus Church, does a podcast, and I know that Nick will continue to do that, even if they don't meet in person, and then I saw this morning that a friend of mine just got on there and said, hey, I want to start a Zoom Bible study so that we can actually do something interactive. And so people are going to be using these online platforms for recovery support, for mental health support, for spiritual support, for physical support. So the truth is that we are in a prime time to utilize these resources that exist already, these online platforms. We're probably going to move our schools to online learning platforms, and it offers businesses that do learning an opportunity to do that. Excuse me, I have to cough. And I'm not symptomatic. It's just allergies because we have pollen all over the place.
So you brought up Zoom. That's a really important interface, and there's several other ones, but one of the things that we know about people in recovery is one of the things that's near and dear to us that's important is being able to connect through support meetings, which in circumstances like we're currently in are not necessarily of the best interest of your individual health or the community's health to be potentially in a room surrounded by people that you could either spread it to or get it from. I'm laughing.
Have you seen that meme?
What?
It says it's a people circle with their toes interlocked saying their serenity prayer.
And everybody's trying to do elbows and things like that. But at the end of the day, like having a interface like Zoom enables you to connect with other people, have a meeting, and it's a great useful tool. There's also Skype. There's also WhatsApp. There's other apps like Marco Polo, FaceTime, Zoom.
And when I put those on there, I was thinking about those. It's about being intentional and about connecting with others, not necessarily formal support or people that are far away. I saw somebody post something today that said, make a commitment to connect with 3 people outside your home a day.
Yeah.
I talked to my dad today about the possibility of setting up a Zoom time for us to connect with them and with my mom and with other people so that we are seeing people face to face, right?
Yeah,
so we're connecting. And ironically, we might actually see their faces more than we do in our day-to-day life. That's the irony of this. But being intentional about connecting so that we're still staying, connected to our humanity. And one thing I kept thinking about was in Italy, they're singing from their windows, in towns, in unison with each other to connect. How cool
Which
is that?
Which is really cool.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and one thing we've skipped that I want to go back to is it's really important to talk to our children.
Oh, yeah.
So
Absolutely.
important. Our kids are actually here with us today.
Yeah.
We're out of school. We're having to be creative. So they're sitting at a table over there playing their tablets.
But to explain to them what's going on to a degree and how important it is for them to wash their hands regularly, all the stuff that you're seeing, but to have that conversation with them and include them in that process so it doesn't feel like they're just fearful and don't know and everybody, all the adults are talking and they need to be a part of this discussion as well.
Absolutely. Well, and also it's a good time to orient them to like the idea that we are responsible for our neighbors, right? So this idea not only of trying to connect, like if somebody's in need to try to help, if we can, but the other piece is that we are washing our hands and keeping our social distance and doing that kind of stuff, speaking of our kids, and keeping our social distance and doing that kind of stuff to care for other people, right? It's not about us necessarily avoiding getting sick, but the potential that we're carriers that can impact people like our grandparents who have lung diseases. And, I had to say it, but our retirement age population is the last generation of like generational smokers, right? So a lot of them have issues with lung diseases and things like that. So it's caring for people and teaching our kids that this is how we care for other people, Yeah,
this isn't just about us trying to avoid being sick. This is about caring for everyone else in the community.
That's right.
Okay, so how do we take this time to intentionally connect?
Mm-hmm.
I think we're farther up.
We've already done all this.
What books? Yeah. Have we already done all that?
Yeah. We kind of skipped to it.
Okay.
Sorry, we just made this content this morning, so we're trying to. What are some things you can do to continue to develop yourself during this time?
Yeah,
is a question.
That's the first thing that helps me to get through anxiety, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But it's like, what are the things that we can do with this time period that's productive? What books have you had on your nightstand that you haven't gotten to? What things have you wanted to learn that you haven't taken the time to? Can you declutter the house and focus on things that could positively impact your home life? There's no reason you can't get out in your yard and weed and do yard work.
I'm thinking like our poor thrift stores are going to see more stuff. It's going to be worse than the Marie Kondo revolution of last year, when they were just getting crap that they couldn't sell. Now everybody's going to be decluttering and getting stuff over there now. Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of things that I call it the quadrant 2 stuff. Stephen Covey in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People talks about the 4 quadrants. And one of those quadrants is quadrant 2, which is important stuff that's not urgent. I always have this long list of important things to me that aren't necessarily urgent, that I don't have time in my day-to-day life to get to. And I think it's important to have that list of different online trainings, books to read, different things you wanted to learn or accomplish, or training modules that you wanted to go through. These are all things that you can utilize this time period for, instead of just getting caught up in distracting yourself with games or Netflix.
Well, I was going to say also for kids, there's a lot of folks, cause I know Scholastic, I know if you actually, you get on Facebook for more than 5 minutes, everybody sharing it. There are tons of learning applications that are offering free content for kids during this time period. There's lots of museums that are doing free tours online and allowing people to participate. There is one of the operas is doing daily, they're just casting daily showings.
Yeah.
So that people can watch them perform.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff. People being really creative and providing content that is meaningful and helps people connect. That builds us up, doesn't suck us down.
Yeah. So if you're a musician, do some live stuff for us, John Butler, so that we can enjoy that.
That's right.
Okay, so managing anxiety. This is a really important thing during this time period. One thing that I regularly encourage clients to take a look at is in Tim Ferriss's TED Talk on fear setting. He talks a great deal and does a really good talk on, instead of goal setting, identifying your fears and coming up with concrete things that you can focus on as activities and behaviors to do to take you farther away from that thing that you fear. How do you practice focusing on the present through mindfulness, through meditation, through prayer, if you have that part of your spiritual practice, focusing on managing the things that we can actually control, which is our own thoughts and actions.
It's interesting. I think that it reminds me of when we did a thing where we were in a small gathering of people with John Butler, and somebody said, in your early days, you focused a lot on politics, and now you focus a lot on other stuff. And he said, I got to the place where I understand the only way I can change the world is by changing myself. Like, that's the only thing I can control. And I think that's this thing is that what I'm seeing a lot of is when we talk about those extremes, it's really people trying to influence people to think the way that they think, right?
Yeah.
It's like people trying to, influence it. So people are trying to amplify anxiety so that people comply with the recommendations, or people are amplifying minimization because they think that it's stupid. Either way, people are trying to control how other people think about
instead of just allowing it to be and being present. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of that too.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt.
The importance of gratitude. How do we find gratitude through this? How do we look at it as this is happening for us, not to us? What are all of the different opportunities within our own work environments or possibly new markets that are going to come out of this experience for us that we can learn and grow and become better to each other and better for each other?
Sure.
Okay, so then what are we doing? Obviously, as a small business, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think that's a perfect segue to this piece, because the truth is that we're small, locally owned business. You and I both derive our income from this business.
Yeah.
And this business requires, it's up to today has been dependent on face-to-face contact.
Yeah.
Whether that's personal training, whether that's health coaching, whether that's therapy.
Yeah.
And this process has been disrupted. So we actually spent a lot of time this weekend talking about what can we control?
Yeah.
We can extrapolate this out to 8 weeks from now where we're bankrupt, we've lost everything, right, in our minds, or we can back it on up and fear set it and say, okay, what can we control?
Yep.
What can we do to get us further away from that?
Yep.
And so that is what makes it feel less out of control and less crazy or overwhelming or even Armageddon-ish. Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to get through this just like we got through everything else. This isn't the first crisis that's happened in any of our lives, and this isn't going to be the last either.
Right.
And just focusing on what we can do each day. And so what are we doing as a small business? Of course, we're following all the guidelines, making sure that everything is clean around here, offering telehealth to our clients who are unable to make it here in person or who are unable to make it not just for health reasons, but also the kids are at home, they can't get out.
That's right.
Or so our kids are at home.
I'm all telehealth.
Yeah.
Right? Because the kids are out of school and I'm the primary caretaker for the kids. So, that means that I've always scheduled my sessions during the day while they're at school. They're not at school, so we're having to be creative, right?
Yeah.
So I've moved all of my stuff I've had to cancel all my in-person stuff like personal training.
Yeah.
And I'm still doing check-ins though with my personal training clients because their mental health means something to me.
Absolutely.
Right? But also I'm all telehealth and thus far everybody's okay with it. It's so the gloom and doom that I imagined hasn't come to fruition at this point.
Absolutely. And then how do we focus this other extra time that we might have specifically on those quadrant 2 things that I spoke of earlier, which is how do we continue to advance building new content, working on CEUs, effectively using, sorry, the kids' tablets are playing and there's music playing in the
I'm dancing to their music in the background, sorry. Right.
Yeah.
How do we build those things?
Yeah.
And, it'll be really important for me I laughed because I laughed at one of those schedule things because it said, the kids get up and watch TV for 2 hours and then I finally get up and I'm like, that could be our reality. Mm-hmm. If I let us, like my kids are not early risers. I need to say that. Like so many people are like, their kids are up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. no matter what. If I have to drag our kids out of bed, they're very much built like me. They're night owls by nature.
I'm the early riser.
And so I laugh because, like even just this morning, I had to make them get up, So it'll be so important for us to stay on a schedule and not have them consuming their tablets or be watching TV or, it'll be intentional. Be intentional about getting outside.
Yeah.
Even if we can't be around everybody, we had to talk about social distancing with the neighborhood kids, right? And so how do we get out in the backyard and get some sunshine in? How do we walk the dog? Yeah.
So hopefully that was some useful information. We will continue to monitor this and also share ideas and things that we have as we go along. Our goal is to remain positive, to focus on the practical things that we can do on a daily basis, to continue to follow our mission at Cole Wellness, which is to improve lives through counseling and personal training. And we're confident that we can continue to do that, and that this is just an opportunity for all of us to grow in better understanding of how to deal with these really difficult situations. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to assist people with doing that. So you can continue to follow us at our website at colewellness.com. We have our podcast with YouTube, iTunes, Spotify on there. We also have blog posts weekly, sometimes more than that right now. You can follow us on all forms of social media, including Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. I think that's
Instagram.
YouTube.
YouTube, yeah.
So
also, I have my Julie Cole
community
person page on. I'm just plugging that because I'll probably be doing some writing. I'm in practice in writing, so that's another place that I do a little bit more personal content.
So thank you for listening.
Yep.
We're very grateful for your attention, and we hope that this finds you peaceful and calm and with a positive outlook.
Thank you.